Good evening, I'm Dagen McDowell.
And I'm Sean Duffy. Welcome to The Bottom Line.
Let's get right to this. Biden and company's crusade against the American way of life, all in the name of climate. Republicans finally brandishing their own sword.
Yes, they are. The EPA has announced potential regulations on gas stoves, showers, laundry machines, air conditioners, and who knows what's next thanks to the radical greenies.
Don't forget about your vehicles, cars, trucks. Back in April, the EPA proposed the most aggressive federal tailpipe emissions regulations, trying to bully Americans into electric vehicles. Today, House Republicans pushing back.
And sure, I'm happy the Department of Energy is out here making sure that we can all save money because we're too dumb to figure out how to do it ourselves. As I look at this, you're looking at a gas stove rule, a dishwasher rule, a washing machine rule, a clothes dryer rule, a general service lamp or light bulb rule, a refrigerator rule, and a new room air conditioner rule. Thank you very much for limiting our choices. We thought we were free in America until we met you folks.
And meanwhile, Democrats hope you're dumb enough to think this is all a joke.
When are you coming to take my gas stove away? And will I get a 4-hour window, like when Comcast comes to my house or the power company? Because I just want to be home when it happens because I have a dog and I don't want him to be let out by accident. So can we schedule that now? When are you coming?
I'm sorry for laughing, but I have 2 dogs and chickens, so it's okay. We're not coming.
Okay.
Republicans say Biden's assault on appliances is going to drive up consumer cost. It will. And the move doesn't seem popular with people. It's not. According to a recent Harvard Caps Harris poll, 69% of Americans oppose a ban on gas stoves. As for electric vehicles, people do not want them. Half of U.S. adults say they're not likely to buy an electric vehicle, according to a recent Pew poll, and 13% say they're not even buying a vehicle, and the inventories of these EVs are piling up.
No one wants them. The Biden administration is going after the American way of life and just hoping you'll comply. All right, let's bring in independent journalist and founder of The Public Substack, Michael Schellenberger. Michael, good to see you. Thanks for joining us again. So listen, if you buy into climate hysteria, I don't know why you're going after gas stoves, washing machines, air conditioners. That's going to do nothing for the climate. Maybe you should look at what's happening in China, where they're building, 10, 12 new coal-burning power plants that'll have more impact on the environment as opposed to my gas stove.
Well, that's right. It's good to be with you. And keep in mind that the natural gas revolution, or what's called the fracking revolution, played the largest role in reducing American carbon pollution between 2005 and 2020 by 22%. That's the largest reduction in carbon emissions by any country ever in history. And so why would you be waging war on the cause of that reduction in pollution? Clearly, this is about control. As you mentioned, they're trying to get into people's homes. They're trying to tell us what kind of appliances they can use. They want to make things more expensive. And there's a financial motivation here because many of those contributors to the politicians demanding these radical changes in your home are getting kickbacks in the form of political contributions so that they can then demand more more restrictions on energy use.
And Michael, that's what I find so frightening about all of this, because this is industrial policy. This harkens back to what's been called corporatism, economic fascism, if you will, where these are irreversible changes that Biden and company are making to the U.S. economy. And with the EVs and the changes that they're trying to make in the name of climate, that they didn't do any cost-benefit analysis. And the whole goal is to actually keep people in poverty, particularly people in, say, sub-Saharan Africa. It will be, literally starving people and keeping them in the dark.
Well, yeah, that's right. Again, if they wanted a pro-human, pro-abundance agenda, then it would be going heavy with natural gas and nuclear. Instead, you see Democratic governors across the country have been shutting down nuclear plants. The Biden administration has been in a war on natural gas. The world needs a lot of natural gas. There's still 2 billion people that use wood and dung and coal as their primary source of energy. Cheap, abundant gas is incredibly clean. So the fact that they're going after gas just shows you how ludicrous this whole agenda is. The other thing I would point out is that, it's also totally unaccountable power. The person that's in charge of the $369 billion slush fund for Chinese-made solar panels is John Podesta, who was Hillary Clinton's campaign manager. He's in the White House in charge of all that money with virtually no accountability. So this is really about money, it's about power, it's about control, and really a pretty dark, as you mentioned, anti-human ideology which views people and energy consumption as the problem, rather than pollution, which we can all get behind fighting.
Right.
And also the cost. I mean, to pay a gas bill versus an electric bill, the gas is far cheaper than electric. So it's not just the cost of the appliance, it's the cost of running the appliance that's going to have an impact on America's way of life. And it's not just here in this conversation. It also goes to Minnesota Congresswoman in squad darling Ilhan Omar. She's getting roasted after calling for a national climate emergency, tweeting, "The Earth just broke the record for the hottest day in 120,000 years. In fact, we broke it on 3 separate days. National climate emergency now." Michael Schellenberger, I didn't know we knew the temperature from 119, 120,000 years ago, let alone 300 years ago.
Look, the most important thing for people to know about heat waves is that we have this really brilliant solution to them, which is called air conditioning.
Yes.
It's why deaths from heat waves have been going down consistently for decades. And in fact, the worst period of heat waves was in the 1930s. There's actually no debate about this. That's not controversial science. That's on the EPA website. So when you realize that the solution is air conditioning, that's how you save lives. You prevent people, the elderly and the weak from dying in heat waves. And then you see that they're the same people that are waging war on natural gas and on cars and on stoves are also waging war on air conditioning. They don't want the Indians and the Africans to have air conditioning. That's immoral. You can't work in hot climates without air conditioning. You can't live a decent life. So I think this is really anti-human at its core. You're right, it's about making energy scarce. We need abundant energy. We reduce pollution when we use abundant sources of energy like natural gas, like nuclear. I think the Democrats got themselves on the wrong side of this issue. I do hope that Republicans make more of it because really in a really hot period like this one, people need air conditioning. That means they need cheap and abundant energy to power those air conditioners.
I love how they say a temperature, and that's proof of climate change. The highest officially registered temperature was in California's Death Valley, 1913. But again, it's about suppressing people. Call them racist and colonialists, and maybe they'll change their tack. Moving on to this, though, from you, brand new tonight, newly released documents that you uncovered reveal how the American media ran an official disinformation campaign during the early days of the COVID pandemic. Quote, "So friggin' likely new COVID documents reveal unparalleled media deception." Tell us more about this, Michael. It's just infuriating.
This is a really bombshell finding. So we just released today literally dozens of previously unreleased messages between the top scientists investigating where COVID came from. And what it shows very clearly is that they all believed it was very likely that it came from a lab in China. They even talked extensively about how it was created, how it could have been created. And then they also, this is a very famous study they put out in a preprint in mid-February 2020, the official publication in Nature Medicine in March 2020 called Proximal Origin of the coronavirus, of COVID-19 coronavirus. And what they say in that report, you may remember this, is they say, oh, it's the fault of pangolins, this very strange reptile in Southeast Asia that took the virus from bats to humans. Privately, the scientists were saying that the pangolin hypothesis didn't make any sense. So we have a very strong headline on that article, and we're not messing around. We say in there that these top scientists, the top advisors to Anthony Fauci, misled Congress last week when they claimed that what they were doing was science. The messages show they were engaged in politics. They were responding to what they called higher ups, pressure from their bosses, and they were openly working to deceive reporters. So it's a pretty big story. I think it's such a big story that people are still trying to digest it. We're going to have more to say about it very soon, but it's very explosive findings that shows that the government, these government-funded scientists waged a disinformation campaign, a propaganda campaign aimed at misleading the American people, and it worked. And then they demanded censorship of people who told the truth.
You can check it out on Substack, Michael Schellenberger. And by the way, the tie-in here is the fear that was used during COVID to get control is also being used with climate change to get even more control. It's a great piece, Michael Schellenberger. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Beware the panic peddlers. Beware the fear mongers.
That's right.